Thank you for all the wonderful questions that you sent, both on YouTube and on Instagram. I got a lot of them, so I've selected the ones that I thought would interest most of you. This video is going to be a bit longer than usual, so I have prepared coffee and pastries so that we can have a good time answering them together. One of the most requested questions was how to incorporate elegance into a casual environment. That's a question I get very often, also inside the Elegance makeover. And the answer is to be mindful of the connotations of your outfit. You're going to appear very elegant, very strict, maybe overly classy for some environments, even though it's better to be overly classy than not enough. If your outfit has a lot of classic, strict, office-like connotations. An environment like a high school or a psychologist's office does not require that much strictness. So what you need to do is that you need to add some laid-back connotations into your outfit. The best formula that I can recommend is having a pair of jeans, because jeans are very laid back in themselves, and a rather casual top. Then you can have heels and a classy bag or classy jewelry. This way you have a laid back base that conveys that you're chill and laid back, but also some classy elements. Another formula would be to still have your jeans, but then have a classic top with structure, so a blouse, and then a more laid back pair of shoes. In any case, if you want to be elegant, there should always be a classic element. There should always be some structure. There should always be a color that says classic. There should always be a material that says classic. If you're a bit unsure, I have put together 10 elegant outfits formulas that you can download for free in the link under the description. The second most requested question, which I was very touched about, was the secret to my curls and how I take care of my hair. As a curly girl, I do struggle a lot with my hair, even today. I have taken a lot of time to find a routine that kind of works for me. I'm still looking for better ways to take care of my curls, even though this is the best I have ever gotten them. First, the thing that didn't work for me was to follow the curly girl routine. My hair or my scalp was very sensitive, and even though those products had less chemicals than classic shampoos, they still had too much for my hair. I would get beautiful hair when I would use them, but then on the long run, my hair broke, didn't grow, and I was always having to cut it because it started looking bad. I changed that after watching this video, which I highly recommend that you do, where the lady is explaining that she has completely let go of chemicals of any sorts. And that has worked for me. I still use some chemicals, but way less. And that's how I've gotten my hair to feel and look the healthiest. I have spaced out the washes quite a lot. I wash my hair 2 to 3 times a month. Before I did that, my hair was actually very oily and I had a lot of dandruff. And counterintuitively, by spacing out the washes, my hair got less oily. The kind of shampoo I use is a baby shampoo. I went to the pharmacy and I went to get the simplest, most natural shampoo I could find. Then to style my hair, I use only one product, which is this product from a French brand called Aromazone. I have checked, they do deliver abroad. This is a cream that I put on wet hair every morning. I either use this kind of curly brush like I did today to have more volume, and I let my curls take their natural place. Either when I want to be a bit more fancy, I hand make my curls. So when you've seen me with the long coily hair, that's what I did. It's not the way my curls naturally place themselves, at least not at the front. I'm still not completely happy with my curls. There are many days where they frustrate me, but that's what I've been given, and I find that it's important to honor what you've been given by life. So I'll keep on improving, and if you are a curly girl and you have some tips to share with everybody, please write them down in the comments. That's always very useful. How has living in a Nordic country affected your style? How would one weave in local cultural influences to a foundation built on French style? I lived in Norway for 6 years. And we moved back to France a year and a half ago now. Living in Norway affected my style in full transparency, not in the best way, because I couldn't find pieces that I liked, because I have a very classic French style. And in Norway, the silhouettes are very oversized. The quality of clothing is not that great unless you go to some small brands. So it was a part of my life where fashion couldn't matter as much as it had. And that's one of the reasons why we moved back to France. I even remember one of the first interviews I took in Norway when I was looking for a job. I went to the interview in heels like I would do in France, but it was snowing that day, which, you know, I thought shouldn't be a problem because I had to wear heels for my job interview. And I remember that the guy who met me that day looked at me as if I was coming from another planet, because Norwegians are very, very laid back when it comes to style. As I started working, I toned down my style a little bit, even though I was still wearing blazers, I was still wearing heels, and I was still amongst the most classy women in the company. But as time went on, I kind of lost my appetite for dressing well. There was a big part of me who was very bored in Norway because it's a smaller country, there is less going on. I wasn't completely able to pinpoint what I was missing until I started this YouTube channel and I realized how much this part of my life I was missing. And it's because I reconnected with this part of myself that we decided to move to France, to also give this channel the space that it needs to grow and to be able to show you many more things than I could have in Norway. And to answer your question on how to mix cultural influences with a French style, what I did was that I mixed some traditional Norwegian influences, so like a Marius Genser, for example, with my French base. I personally didn't embrace other parts of Norwegian fashion because I didn't really vibe with it. But if you want to do that, the best that you can do is to have a straight pair of jeans and have some piece, that's the statement piece in your outfit, that references this other culture. In the French outfit, there is always going to be some casual and some classic. So look at that cultural piece that you want to integrate and see if it's rather casual or rather classic. If it's rather casual, then you need to add some classic to the outfit. And if it's rather classic, then you need to add some casual to the outfit. Another formula that you can use is to have something rather classic and then the jewelry be the reference to another culture. I would like to know how to elegantly navigate conversations about not wanting to get married or have children. I'm a researcher and amateur artist in my 40s, had it with romantic relationships, and I'm willing to focus on other parts of my life now. But I face a lot of pressure from everyone I ever have a conversation with. I end up in most conversations with people trying to fix me, teach me, improve me, give me higher and better goals. It is annoying, but I usually smile and act as sweet as I can so as to not hurt them. I feel you are strong and sweet at the same time and would like some advice on how to get to that point where people love me without looking at me like a pet, a child, an object, but a respected other who has sovereignty over their own being. That's an amazing question. I feel you because I am 33, I do not have children yet, and I often get the question, when are you going to have children? And as of now, it's not my desire to have children. What you should do when people ask you about this is that you shouldn't give them any reason. Because if you give them a reason, then it gives them something to chew on, to answer, to keep the conversation going. And you don't want that conversation to go anywhere because you don't need to justify yourself. So what you want to do is to starve the conversation by not giving any reason as to why you do not want to get married and have children. You can say, it's not something that I want, I don't have that desire, I'm happy with my life as it is. Second, you don't need to be nice to them because it's them who are being disrespectful by asking you about something so intimate and trying to change you and thinking that you have a problem. You can still show kindness in your voice, but your words should be firm. And that's probably what you like about me. I'll say very harsh truths with a lot of kindness in my voice. The way that you can do that is by saying, I've thought about it a lot and it's not something that I want. The words don't give anywhere to go and they don't open for any conversation, but still with your tone and your facial expression, you are conveying kindness. And then just give them nothing more, just starve the conversation. My dad calls it the broken record. You just go on like a broken record, repeating the same thing. Thank you. As I said, I've thought about it and I don't wish to have children. Oh, but you'll change your mind. Maybe. Oh, but you know, you'll regret it and you'll end up alone. Well, that's a risk I'm willing to take. And then if they start improving you, you can simply say, I'm not looking for advice on this, thank you. You're being very strict, but in a kindness wrapper. And in my experience, that just bores people out. They're just like, okay, whatever with her. And then they move on and they give you your peace back. Why did you stop being a lawyer? The main reason was that I wasn't happy as a lawyer. And I believe that it is possible to be happy in life because I see a lot of people who are, and I feel happy now in my life. So I have always to look for the right way for me to be happy in my life. And I noticed that being a lawyer was not aligned with that. The reason why it didn't feel right was because although I enjoy how law works and the fact that you have a text and you have facts and you have to apply the text to the facts so that you get the outcome that you want. That's something that I really like. The way that I ended up practicing law was not fun for me. Without going too much in detail, the moment where I moved to Norway, there was a regulation that was coming to force on how to protect personal data. I already knew that I wanted to move abroad, and I was looking for a way to do that as a lawyer. So this regulation came at the perfect time, so I decided to specialize in it. So I took certifications and I learned all about it, and that's what enabled me to get a job in Norway very quickly. But what I had to do on the day-to-day was really boring, and it wasn't at all what I had imagined when I thought about being a lawyer. That's the first part. And then the second part is that I didn't enjoy the environment of being a lawyer. So the crowd, people are quite presumptuous, and I find in France specifically, and there are a lot of people I studied with and worked with that I found were so up their own bum, and I didn't enjoy that crowd, and I didn't feel like I was with my crowd, which I wanted to find. I had always dreamt of being a digital nomad, of having some kind of freedom. So when COVID hit, I quit my job and I started initially as an illustrator on Instagram because I like to draw. And that's when I started getting comfortable with the platform, getting comfortable with social media, building a little following. And from then on, because I did a good job at building a following, then I started having first customers for free to show them how to grow their Instagram, and that went well. So then I had paying customers. And then for 3 years, I ran a business teaching others how to get customers on Instagram. That's something that I liked so much more than being a lawyer. And I really enjoyed being an entrepreneur, being independent. So I decided to continue this route. And with all of this experience, I really ended up developing some strong marketing skills. I worked for 2 companies when at some point my business was not generating as much as I wanted. So I worked for a first company, and then when we moved to France, I worked for another company in marketing this time. And even though I am still not happy when I work in a company, I really have the entrepreneur fire. I did enjoy being a marketer much more than I enjoyed being a lawyer. I'm still very grateful though that I studied law, because when I started my business, I was much more confident with all of, the rules around running your own business. And to this day, I don't think a week goes by without me relying on my legal knowledge. How can we bring more personality into our professional outfits? I used to love kitschy vintage inspired clothing. While I have outgrown this, I still love bright colors and patterns and want to know how to incorporate them without being disrespected. The best answer to this is to use that as your statement piece. So maybe you have a very classic outfit and you have a shoe that's a little bit funky. Another option, still in that statement piece idea, is to have a blazer that is either in a funky material, so in tweed, in velvet, in silk, that is still a classic piece in its shape, but that has a material that conveys more personality. You can also, which is something I recommended to a private client a few days ago, have the inner lining of your blazer be a little bit funky. So maybe have some patterns, maybe some drawings. I have a friend who's a fashion designer, and she made the inside of her coat the same patterns as the moulure that we have on the ceiling here in the apartment. That's a great way to convey your personality while still using mostly professional codes. How did you learn so much about fashion? I've always had an interest for fashion. Since as long as I can remember, I wanted to buy the fashion magazines, and I would look at them with obsession, looking at all the lines and all the materials and the way that it fell and the silhouettes. So I've always had an interest that I can't really explain. I have also always liked to draw. So as soon as I could, I started drawing characters and outfits, and very complex ones. I've also gotten a lot of education from my grandmother and my mother. And I remember the exact moment I understood that clothing conveyed a story. That was when I was 10 and I wanted to buy clothes. I was with my mom in the shop, And there was a top that I fell in love with, exactly like a lingerie top. It was white, it had a lot of lace, a lot of lacing everywhere, and I found that it looked so cool. It was also what I had seen in the cartoons, on the runway, and I found that this top was just so freaking cool. So I tried it on, and I saw that my mom had a bit of a, it's not that great. And I remember her telling me, you know, you do what you want and you wear what you want, but if you wear this, you're going to send a signal to men that you might not want to send. And I remember looking at her like, men, what do you mean? And she went, well, this looks very much like lingerie. So when you wear lingerie, it tells men that maybe you're a bit more grown up than what you actually are, and that maybe you would be interested in like kissing and dating. And I remember when she said that, I felt I had something that clicked in my head, and I took it off right away. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to send that message. I don't want to send that message to men like dad, you mean? Like the old ones? And I remember that the rest of the day, I just cogitated this thing. And I think that's the moment where it opened this world of connotations to me. And then further on, when I grew up, because I was lucky to be raised in France where people do dress very well, I looked at other women and I looked at the connotations of their clothes. And that's how I was able to put together the systems that I use today, because I have spent so much time understanding how connotations work together, the ones that work, the ones that don't work, what are the right proportions, etc. So to sum up, it's a mix of genuine interest, education, and spending a lot of time understanding how it actually works. Some of us need to cover our heads most of the time. I'd love a video all about chic hats and headscarves. This question actually echoed a very interesting one that I received as a message on Instagram on how do you wear a headscarf elegantly. I don't know if I have all the knowledge required to answer that question, but what I can do is answer from a French elegance perspective, and then from what you know about the proper ways of wearing a headscarf and what it means from a religious perspective, doing your little mix from there. In French elegance, you are not supposed to convey your femininity in a way that is very obvious. So you're not supposed to show a lot of skin, you're not supposed to show your feminine attributes. It's expected of you to convey femininity in another way. And in that sense, wearing a headscarf is aligned. A headscarf, because it is flowy, it does convey femininity. One of the best ways to convey a modest, classy kind of femininity is to wear something that flows. It also conveys femininity because it frames your face, so it draws the eye to your eyes and the attributes of your face, which is also obviously a very feminine thing. So when you're thinking about wearing a headscarf with an elegant French outfit, what you should think about in terms of connotations is that your headscarf is obviously saying, I am Muslim, and it's also saying, I am feminine, I am modest. These are the connotations that, because you have to wear that headscarf, are already in your outfit. Then, if you want to dress elegantly the French way, there should be a little element of laid back, and there is also a part of classic. So as soon as you'll have that mix of laid back and classic, you're going to have the French elegance with a tweak of Muslim. You can play with the connotations of your headscarf by changing the colors and by changing the materials. If you have colors that are very soft, you're going to add to your outfit a very soft, fragile, girly kind of feminine. If you have colors that are rather dark, like navy blue or black, you're going to add connotations that are more serious, more mysterious, and that's going to impact how the overall outfit is perceived. Likewise, if your headscarf is in a very flowy material, like silk, for example, or muslin, then you're going to have more femininity in your outfit than if your headscarf is in thick cotton that doesn't flow as much. If you want to use patterns, then the rest of the outfit should be very minimal, and you should use your headscarf as the statement piece. That's the piece that's going to catch the eye the most because of the bold patterns. And then because it's very close to your face, if you're looking for a natural harmony, think about your color season. Because if you have a cold undertone but a very bright yellow headscarf, it's going to look a little bit off. as opposed to if you have a gray-blue headscarf, for example, which would match your cold undertone. And then when it comes to hats, an elegant hat is going to be elegant regardless of if you're wearing it to cover your hair or if you're wearing it as a fashion accessory. Does talking in a formal way all the time, whether in formal or informal settings, ruin the overall impression of the person? By formal, I mean not using slang words, using the standard English term, etc. From my experience, not at all. At the contrary, the more formal you are in your words, not necessarily in your tone or in your way of moving your body, the more seriously you're taken and the more valuable you look to other people. I've been told that I speak like a book very often. The only people who have said that as an insult were not people that I'm friends with anymore, or people whose advice I would take. So in my experience, talking well has always been a great skill. I do not swear. Like, my husband makes fun of me when I say the F word because I don't even say it like it should, and I use slang very rarely. I don't miss that in my life to express all the things that I want to express. Today, as a grown woman, it has only served me. It even goes further because when you are the person who casually uses beautiful words and makes beautiful sentences, people are even more impressed and they respect you even more. I noticed that with other French people because I speak French much better than I speak English, obviously. And I noticed that people react. They have a little moment of surprise of like, oh, you speak really well, but you're also really casual and approachable. So no. Honestly, I can only encourage you to speak as beautifully as you can. It has never hurt me in my life and it has only brought me good. Where does the name Mademoiselle Spends come from? That's a good one. Mademoiselle Spends was not supposed to be a YouTube channel initially. It was supposed to be a podcast on financial advice for women. I have learned a lot in my life about finance and I've gotten much better than I was, and I wanted to share those skills with other women. And the way that I wanted to do that was to talk about a passion that I have, which is fashion. So one night when I was trying to fall asleep, I was looking for a name for the podcast and I was asking for inspiration. I was asking for the name to come to me, and what I heard was Mademoiselle. Use Mademoiselle. So I thought Mademoiselle is great because I'm French and I wanted to talk already about France and Paris and, the handbags and the fashion. And then I thought, well, Mademoiselle Spends, because it's a podcast about money. So it started like this, and I recorded a few episodes of Mademoiselle Spends, the financial advice podcast. And I remember telling my husband that I wanted to start a YouTube channel to go together with the podcast. And very wisely, he said to me, those skills are still skills that you're developing, like you've gotten much better, but maybe there is something that, you have a talent at that doesn't require any effort from you. I remember thinking like, oh, it's annoying. And I remember saying, if I could, I would only talk about handbags. I'd like to just talk about handbags. I love fashion. I just would like to talk about the fashion. And he said, well, why don't you do that? And I remember thinking in that moment, right. There are plenty of women who have a career talking about fashion and do it very well. So why don't I do that? And that's how Mademoiselle Spends, as the YouTube channel that you know today, was born. I had a moment wondering, should I change the name? But I had already fallen in love with it, and I thought that that's the name that feels right for me. So hopefully people will follow along, even though it's not Mademoiselle Dresses or Mademoiselle Fashion or something a bit more obvious. What are some aspects of growing up in a château that outsiders would never guess? Are there rooms that are rarely or never used? Are there parts of the property you still haven't explored? I think what people would never guess is how casual it actually is. People have this idea that when you are in a château, then you have to behave like royalty on display, so in a public setting, whereas people are people, whether they are in a chateau or in a simple classic condo. It's definitely true that people will behave in a fancy way when they are in public, but in private, it's just their home. So there's no difference. People watch TV and just sit on the sofa in a bit more relaxed way, and people cook, people make a mess, people laugh at the dinner table. Just imagine the life that you have in your home, but in a castle environment. I remember that my grandfather was very adamant about some rules, so there is maybe a bit more strictness than the average home, but I remember feeling that there was not so much of a difference. It just felt like a home. Are there rooms that are rarely or never used? 100%. My grandparents' chateau technically is a manoir. So if you want to have the chateau name officially, you need to have a very big property with a lot of gardens, maybe some farm on the side, etc. So I use the term chateau because I don't want to say I grew up in my grandparents' manoir or maison de maître, because that doesn't travel culturally as easily. Even though their home was smaller than a huge chateau, there were still rooms that were not used. There was a room in the main tower that was first my grandmother's atelier, because she was a painter, that then became a sort of storage room that we kind of never used, which was a shame because you had to go through the tower to get into the room, so you would always go in front of that room that was always a little bit messy. And there were other rooms in the grenier, in the roof, under the roof, that were also rooms that could have been used for something, but that were just used for storage. They had a lot of bedrooms, so when we would all come as the family, everybody would have space to sleep, so that was really nice. And then when they renovated it, they built under that roof a huge atelier for my grandmother, which was my favorite room, and I've taken a lot of pictures from that room because it was poetry at its best, with the tubes of paint that were used and the brushes and her paintings that were not finished yet, or the ones that she would have kind of erased or scraped so that she could use the canvas again. In the other chateaus that I've stayed at, which were chateaus that were welcoming people, so the two chateaus that you've seen on the channel, these have rooms that are either used for their customers, either used for themselves. And some rooms are more used than others. Are there parts of the property you still haven't explored? I don't think so. It was not so big that it wouldn't be possible to explore it all. And I think that even in a bigger chateau, I would still have seen everything because we went there every summer. How to deal with looking too young? What tricks do you recommend to look older and be more respected? So I have actually made a full video on that question. It's a question that I get often, so I wanted to, because I have a lot of videos now on the channel, so I wanted to let you know that this video is available. I'll put it in the description so you can find it, and there you will have your answer in depth on how to be taken seriously when you naturally look young. How do you style watches? How to wear them elegantly, and do they count as a piece of jewelry? They absolutely count as a piece of jewelry, and they are a rather visible one because they take more space on your wrist. So it's definitely something that you should take into account when you're building your outfit. It's not just something that sits on your wrist to tell the time. I rarely wear my watch for that reason, because I find that it catches the eye too much, and I prefer having other details of my outfit do the talking rather than my watch. How to style it elegantly? Definitely wearing it as the only piece on your wrist, so not stacking it with a lot of other things, and having a watch that suits your wrist size. So I know a lot of people have, how are those called, smartwatches now, and those smartwatches are not the most elegant piece of clothing there is. I know that I have a customer who's an athlete, for example, so she does wear that smartwatch for more reasons than just telling the time and tracking her sleep. But ideally, it's a piece that should be as close to jewelry as possible in metal colors, so gold, silver, rose gold, and be as proportionate to your wrist as possible, so that it really, just choose it like you would choose any other piece of jewelry. How to deal with criticism when you dress more elegantly? It's also a question that I get very often. The reason why people criticize is because you dressing elegantly triggers something in them about the way they present themselves, about how they feel, about how they present. So it's never really about you dressing elegantly. It's much more about them and the story that they have going on about showing up in the world in a way that's beautiful and positive, and that also shows that you matter. The way that I've dealt with it, and these were just people telling me, oh, you're so fancy today, is just by answering thank you. Because I'm proud of being fancy. And I'm proud of being well dressed. And I'm proud of people saying to me and behind my back, oh, Ariane, she dresses so well, or she takes herself so seriously. It's true that I do take myself seriously in the way that I present myself, because it is important and it has impacted my life positively. If I hadn't presented myself the way I have, I don't think I would have worked on the Champs-Élysées. I'm not even sure I would be a lawyer, or I wouldn't be the lawyer at the level that I was, because I did some fancy education, I got a scholarship, etc., because I presented well. I don't think I would have gotten a job in Norway without speaking the language within 2 weeks. I don't think I would have gotten the pays that I've gotten if I had presented differently. I don't think I would have attracted the man that I have attracted. I don't think I would have built the business I've built, and I don't think I would charge the prices that I charge. So it's definitely something that I'm proud of, and if people can't comprehend that, then it's fine. There are a lot of people who don't comprehend many beliefs that I have, and it doesn't prevent me from leading the life that I want to lead. That's something I've realized also with growing an audience and being more visible on social media. People's opinion of you really doesn't do anything to your life. It only does something to your life if you take them as something important or something that matters. But because people's opinion is only the reflection of their own beliefs and what they believe to be true about life, they don't say anything about you. So it's up to you to decide if they matter or not. And I've decided that they don't, because I'm very happy with my life. How old are you, and have you traveled anywhere fun that was your favorite place or country? I am 33, and I have traveled to Thailand, where I've been a digital nomad for 4 months during COVID. It was easy. I had always dreamt of being a digital nomad. With my husband, we decided to move to Indonesia initially, like all digital nomads. But then COVID hit, and the country that opened first after that was Thailand. So we started our trip in Thailand. It was a very intense trip because it was COVID, everything was closed. A lot of the rules that would have applied in other moments didn't apply anymore. So it was a bit more wild or free than it would be normally. And the reason why it was my favorite place is because I learned so much about myself there. I had that dream of not having a home and going from country to country, discovering different cultures, always having a different home, and therefore being able to have all types of homes and try them all. And I realized by being nomad that it actually didn't work at all for me, and that I'm very much of a homie, and that I love being in my home, my things. Even today, we rent this apartment, and there are plenty of things that frustrate me because it's not my home. I've learned that about myself, that I actually need to plant some roots. And that's a learning that has followed me all this time. I moved a lot when I was a kid and also a young adult. I have moved 25 times in my life. I definitely know how to pack efficiently. But because of that, I haven't really planted deep roots anywhere. Because I realized I was so much of a homie, we came back from our travels way quicker than we anticipated, and we renovated our place in Norway and we made it beautiful so that we can plant our roots there. And I don't think I have a favorite country. They all have different places in my heart. There are things that I loved about Thailand that I miss in Norway and France, things that I love about Norway that I miss in France, and things I love about France that I missed in Norway. Nowhere is perfect, and that's one of the things that I need to accept as somebody who is always thriving for more happiness and more perfection or more alignment with what I desire. How to be elegant when you are fat. I know elegance is related to pose, carriage, ease, stillness, etc., but I never ever see any women carrying even slightly more weight, much less ones who are fat in any examples given by creators discussing this topic. I have also noticed that many brands which seem aligned with elegant clothing offer a size 8 or 12 as their largest size. Is it even possible to be overweight and considered elegant? Is it viewed as a fatal character flaw? Can you think of examples of overweight women you think are elegant? Well, I'm happy to be able to say, I'm happy you asked this question, and I'm happy to be able to say that yes, there are plenty of women who are fat and elegant. Elegance, as you said it, is a lot in the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, in the energy that you convey. And it's also in the clothes, in your ability to mix those connotations and find silhouettes that enhance your natural silhouette. When it comes to the fashion of elegance specifically, the best thing that you can do, which might feel a bit counterintuitive when you are fat, is to have structure. You need to add structure because your body has a lot of curves, and elegance is about having some kind of structure, some kind of classic. The more structure you're going to add to your body, the more you're going to shape it in the way that you'd like. Have shape around your shoulders to give them the square shape. You should definitely have your waist marked, regardless of how it looks naturally. Find just under your rib cage, and that's where you should have your waistline for your pants or your belt or anything that you're wearing, because that's going to give you the classic elegant silhouette with the long legs and the shorter torso, so 2/3. And then in that structure, the worst that you could do would be to have trousers or tops that are very close to your body, because maybe you think that you shouldn't take space. Rather, you should have some flow, because flow is femininity and flow is grace. So if you can have some flow on the top, still with your structure here, and some flow on the bottom, you're going to add much more grace and much more femininity to your silhouette. As a creator, I have the hardest time finding fat women who are dressed elegantly and who are influencers, so who post pictures of themselves online. The main person that I can think about is, she's called Diana Dares. She has lost weight recently, but she used to post pictures when she was quite big, and she was always dressed beautifully and elegantly, and you'll see also in her reels that she's very graceful and she's very delicate in the way that she moves. So to me, that's the perfect example of a woman that's visible, who is an influencer, and who dressed beautifully as a big woman. How did you grow your confidence when seeing the big contrast between elegant natural beauty and the plastic surgery beauty? Well, I struggled, like anybody else, and I still do to this day. There are moments where I feel extremely underconfident showing up on camera, because I find that there is too much frizz on my hair, because I find that I have too many pimples, I am not happy with my skin texture, etc. And I'm not happy with my jawline either. So I definitely find that I have a lot of flaws, and I'm definitely conscious many times. But I have decided to ignore them and do that anyways, because I see a lot of ugly white men succeed in life, and they don't seem to mind that they are ugly. I'm not saying that I'm ugly, but that's the reasoning that I've been following, is that if those men can be successful, whereas they're not pleasing to the eye, then as an okay looking woman, I should be fine as well. The second way that I grew that confidence was by trying things. So I remember going to the office without makeup. I remember going to the office with my glasses on, back when I had glasses. I did an operation to see how people reacted. And I saw that there was no real reaction, in the sense that people didn't go like, oh my God, like what happened? It just said like, oh, you look tired. But then I would still be able to do my job, and people would still interact with me normally. That also helped me realize that I didn't need to look perfectly perfect all the time. Then now when it comes to social media and having my face out there much more, I do compare myself, and I do struggle with that. And there is a part of me who would like to use the filters and who would like to cheat. But the reason why I don't do it is because I know that the way I look like is closer to the way that you look like, and the way that most women look like. And the women that I see in the streets, they don't have a filter and a face full of Botox and a perfect skin, and they are still beautiful. So I think it's important for me, to the extent that I can, to be the example of a kind of beauty that is not all fake or redone. And that makes me think that a third thing that has really impacted me is that I've had access to different types of beauties. If you look at social media, you'll see only one type of beauty and one way of being beautiful. But if you look at people outside, if you look at paintings, if you look at historical descriptions of women, or if you read this descriptions of women, the way beauty is presented is much more diverse, and the way of being attractive, the way of being feminine is much more about charm and energy and feminine attributes than it is about the perfect plastic. One of the reasons I wear my hair the way that I do is because I've seen plenty of paintings where the woman is considered beautiful because she has long, lush, curly hair. Even though some people might not see that as beautiful, I know that the right eye and the people I wish to talk to and I wish to be around, they will consider that beautiful. I once picked up the rule, the shorter the skirt, the flatter the heel, and was wondering, is there actually any truth to it, or is it outdated? I didn't know of this as a rule the way you said it, but it's definitely a rule that French women use. The reason is that you don't want to convey too much sexy in your appearance. If you have a short skirt, you're going to reveal a lot of your legs, so you're going to convey a lot of sexy already. So if you add a high heel to that short skirt, which is very sexy as well, then you're going to appear way too sexy. Like my mom told me when I was 10, you're going to tell a story that will tell men that you want to kiss them. Whereas if you wear a flat shoe, which is not sexy, then the sexy element of your outfit is only your legs showing. So it's way less out there, or way less obvious. So it's absolutely true, and it's a rule of elegance that still very much applies. Wear very high heels if nothing else in your outfit is sexy, because the heels are going to do the sexy part for the whole outfit. They're going to talk sexy for the whole outfit. On the other hand, if you're showing a lot of skin or a lot of legs, then definitely avoid having heels, because it's going to be way over the top in terms of sexiness, and you're not going to be elegant, because elegance is not about the body kind of sexy. It's about the femininity, the suggested kind of sexy. You're not attractive because you have a beautiful plastic or a beautiful body. You're attractive because you are intelligent and you know how to put your assets forward, but in a way that doesn't require you to reveal any skin. That's for later on. I hope you've enjoyed this new format. If you have, please let me know in the comments so I would know to make more. And if you wish to talk to me live every week, you can do so by starting your Elegance Makeover. Inside the Elegance Makeover, you have weekly calls with me where you can ask me all your questions. I'm extremely grateful for your presence here, and I'll see you very happily in the next one. À bientôt!